The notification lit up my phone at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday that felt like every other Tuesday until it wasn't. I'm moving out again. This time it's permanent. Don't try to stop me. I read it twice. Not because I didn't understand. I read it twice because I wanted to remember the exact moment when 7 years of marriage became a text message sent between someone's lunch break and mine. My hands didn't shake. That's what surprised me most. I was standing in the logistics bay at Patterson Distribution, surrounded by the hum of conveyor belts and the beeping of forklifts, and my hands were completely steady as I typed back a single word. Okay. I hit send and put the phone in my pocket. Carson, my floor supervisor, walked past with a clipboard. "You good, Tom?" "Yeah," I said. "Just fine." And I was. That was the thing that would have confused anyone who knew us, anyone who'd watched Rachel methodically reshape our marriage into something that served her and only her. They would have expected tears, anger, desperate phone calls begging her to reconsider. She certainly expected that. I know because she'd done this before. 3 months ago, she'd announced she needed space, packed a bag, went to stay with her sister for 4 days, came back when I called on day 3 asking if we could talk. 6 months before that, she'd told me she wasn't sure if she loved me anymore, waited for me to scramble and promised to change, then graciously agreed to stay when I did exactly that. This was her pattern: create crisis, wait for capitulation, return with more power than before. The difference was that this time, I'd been expecting it. I finished my shift, logged my hours, turned in my handheld scanner, clocked out at 5:30 like always. Drove home to our 3-bedroom rental on Maple Street, the one with the decent yard and the broken porch light I'd been meaning to fix for 2 months. She wouldn't be home yet. Rachel worked at Premier Medical Systems as a compliance coordinator, and she never left before 6. That gave me time. I opened the door to a house that already felt different, not sad, not empty, just different, like walking into a place you used to live and realizing you'd already moved on mentally before your body caught up. The first thing I did was call Dave. Dave Paulson owned the house. We'd been renting from him for 4 years, and he was the kind of landlord who actually fixed things when they broke and didn't raise the rent every year like clockwork. He answered on the second ring. "Tom, hey. What's up?" "Need to ask you something," I said. "Rachel's moving out. I want to stay. Can we change the lease to just my name?" There was a pause. Not a long one. Dave had met Rachel exactly twice, and both times she'd complained about something minor in the house while barely acknowledging his existence. "Yeah," he said. "I can draw up a new agreement. You want me to come by tomorrow?" "Tonight if you can. I'll pay this month and next month up front." Another pause, shorter. "I can be there in an hour." "Thanks, Dave." I hung up and looked around the living room. The couch we'd bought together, the TV mounted on the wall, the bookshelf filled mostly with her medical journals and self-help books she never finished, the coffee table with the ring stains from her wine glasses. I didn't feel sentimental about any of it. What I felt was clarity. I went upstairs to our bedroom and started packing her things. Not frantically, not with anger, methodically, like I was organizing inventory at work. Her clothes folded and placed in the suitcases she kept in the closet. Her toiletries from the bathroom into a cardboard box. Her jewelry from the dresser into a smaller box, each piece wrapped in tissue paper because I'm not a thief and I'm not careless. The photograph on her nightstand showed us on our wedding day. She was smiling at the camera. I was looking at her. I left it face down where it was. By the time Dave arrived at 7:15, I had everything packed and staged by the front door. 6 suitcases, 4 boxes, 2 bags. Her entire presence in our shared life reduced to a pile in the entryway. Dave looked at the pile, then at me. He didn't ask questions. He handed me the new lease agreement, already filled out with my name alone. I signed it, wrote him a check for 2 months' rent, and he handed me a new set of keys. "The old keys won't work anymore," he said. I'll have the locks changed tomorrow morning. Early. I appreciate it. He nodded once and left. Good guy, Dave. I ordered Chinese food and ate it standing at the kitchen counter, looking at the clock. Rachel would be home soon. She'd expect to find me devastated, probably drunk, definitely ready to negotiate her return on her terms. Instead, she'd find her belongings packed and the locks changed. I finished eating, threw away the containers, and sat down on the couch to wait. The key turned in the lock at 8:43 p.m. It didn't work. I heard her try again. The scrape of metal on metal, the frustrated little sound she made when something didn't immediately cooperate. Then silence, as she realized what was happening. The doorbell rang. I got up, walked to the door, and opened it. Rachel stood on the porch with her purse over her shoulder and her phone in her hand, already pulled up to either call me or call the police. I couldn't tell which. She was wearing her navy blue work dress, the one she said made her look authoritative. Her dark hair was pulled back in the tight bun she wore for important meetings. She looked at me, then past me at the pile of her belongings in the entryway. "What is this?" she said. "You said you were moving out," I said. "I helped." Her eyes widened, not with sadness, with disbelief. "You pack my things?" "You said it was permanent. I believed you." "Tom, She stopped, recalibrating. This wasn't going the way she'd scripted it. "We need to talk about this." "No, we don't. You can't just... You texted me that you were leaving." I said, "Okay, you're leaving. It's fine. This is my home." "It was," I said. "Now it's mine. Lease is in my name only. Locks are changed. Your stuff is right here. You can take it whenever you want." The disbelief was shifting into something else now. Anger, maybe. Or the realization that she'd overplayed her hand and I'd called her bluff. "You're being ridiculous," she said, trying to sound calm, but her voice had an edge to it. "I'm not leaving tonight. We need to discuss this like adults." "We are discussing it like adults. You made a decision. I respected it. That's very adult. Where am I supposed to go?" "Wherever you went last time you needed space. Your sister's, probably." She stared at me. I could see her trying to figure out what leverage she had left, what emotional button she could press to make me fold like I always did. "I'm calling my lawyer," she said finally. "Okay." That word again. The word that was breaking her composure more effectively than any argument could have. "Stop saying that." "Saying what?" "Okay, stop being so..." She gestured at me, searching for the word. "Calm about this. You want me to yell, cry, beg you not to go?" I leaned against the door frame. "That's what you expected, right? That's what happened last time. And the time before that. You leave, I panic, you come back with a little more control than you had before. That's not..." "It is, Rachel. And I'm done with it." She took a step back like I'd pushed her. "So that's it? 7 years and you're just... done?" "You said it was permanent," I reminded her. "I'm just agreeing with you." For a long moment, we stood there in the doorway. Her on the porch with the broken light I'd never fixed. Me in the house that was now only mine. "Fine," she said finally. "I'll get my things tomorrow. They'll be here." She turned and walked down the steps to her car, a silver Honda Accord she kept meticulously clean. She got in, started the engine, and sat there for a moment, probably waiting for me to change my mind, to run after her, to make this normal again. I closed the door and went back inside. The house was quiet, not lonely, just quiet in a way it hadn't been in a long time. I sat back down on the couch and turned on the TV, some rerun of a show I'd seen before. It didn't matter what it was. The noise was enough. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. "We're not done talking about this." I put the phone face down on the coffee table and didn't respond. She was wrong, of course. We were absolutely done talking about it. She just didn't know it yet. What she also didn't know was that I'd been planning this moment for 6 weeks. Ever since I'd seen her car parked outside the Riverside Apartments at lunch, on a day when she'd told me she was having a working lunch with her team at the office. I hadn't confronted her, hadn't followed her, hadn't done anything dramatic or stupid. I'd just filed the information away and waited to see if she'd do what she always did, manufacture a crisis to maintain control, and she had. The difference was that this time, I'd been 3 steps ahead of her. I turned off the TV around 10 and went upstairs. The bedroom felt bigger without her things in it, emptier, but in a good way, like I'd cleaned out a closet that had been cluttered too long. I got into bed on my side, the right side, the side I'd slept on for 7 years because she preferred the left. The sheets smelled like the detergent she insisted we use, the expensive kind from the organic store. I'd buy different detergent tomorrow. Something cheaper. Something that was just mine. My phone buzzed again. I didn't look at it. Sleep came easier than I expected. No anxiety, no second guessing. Just the quiet satisfaction of knowing that for the first time in years, I'd made a decision and stuck to it without apologizing, without compromising, without folding. Rachel had wanted to leave. I'd simply made sure she couldn't come back. Dave showed up at 7 a.m. with a locksmith named Pete. I watched from the kitchen window as they changed both the front and back door locks, efficient and professional. The whole thing took 20 minutes. When Dave handed me the new keys, he said, "Your wife's probably going to be upset about this." "Ex-wife," I corrected. "Soon, anyway." He nodded and left without another word. I made coffee and stood at the counter drinking it, looking at the pile of Rachel's belongings still stacked by the door. She hadn't come back last night. Probably stayed at her sister's place like I'd predicted. Probably spent the whole evening trying to explain how her husband had suddenly grown a spine, and she didn't know what to do about it. My phone had 11 unread messages from her. I scrolled through them without opening the notification, just reading the preview text. "We need to talk. Tom, this is insane. I'm coming to get my things at noon. You can't just lock me out of my own home. Answer your phone." The last one, sent at 2:34 a.m. "I know about your girlfriend." I actually laughed at that one, not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. When manipulation doesn't work, try accusation. Make me defend myself, make me prove I wasn't cheating, turn the whole thing around so somehow I'm the bad guy. I deleted all the messages without responding. Work was normal. I showed up at 8, logged in, spent the day coordinating shipments and managing inventory databases. My job at Patterson Distribution wasn't glamorous, but it paid decent, and I was good at it. Systems, logistics, making sure things went where they were supposed to go when they were supposed to get there. Carson came by around lunch. "How you doing, man?" "Fine," I said. "Heard your wife moved out." "Small town. News travels." "Yeah. That's rough." "It's fine," I said, and I meant it. He looked at me like he wanted to say something else, something supportive or sympathetic, but he just nodded and walked away. Good guy, Carson. I left work at 5:30 and stopped at the hardware store on the way home. Bought a motion sensor light for the porch, the kind that turns on automatically when someone approaches. Installed it myself in 20 minutes. Rachel's car was in the driveway when I pulled up. She was sitting on the porch steps with her phone in her hand, and she stood up when she saw me. Still wearing work clothes, a different dress this time, charcoal gray, professional armor. "You changed the locks," she said. "I did." "That's illegal." "No, it's not. You're not on the lease anymore. Dave confirmed it with his lawyer. You have no legal right to access this property." Her jaw tightened. "My things are in there." "I know. They're right inside the door. I'll bring them out." "I want to come inside and get them myself." "No." "Tom, don't be childish." "I'm not being childish. You don't live here anymore. You said so yourself. I'm just respecting your decision." I walked past her to the door, unlocked it with my new key, and went inside. She tried to follow me, but I closed the door before she could, not slamming it, just closing it firmly. I heard her say something on the other side, but I ignored it. I started carrying her things out. One suitcase at a time, one box at a time, setting them on the porch, going back inside for the next load. She stood there watching me, her arms crossed, her face a mixture of anger and confusion. "Where's my wedding ring?" she asked when I brought out the jewelry box. "In the box, right where you left it." "I didn't leave it. I've been wearing it." "Then it should be in the box with your other jewelry from the bedroom." She opened the box, found the ring, and held it up. "You took this off my nightstand?" "You weren't wearing it yesterday. It was on the nightstand. So yes." She stared at the ring, then at me. "You really think this is over? Just like that? You're the one who said it was permanent." "I was upset. People say things when they're upset." "Do they?" I set down another box. "Because you've said it before. 3 times before, actually. And every time I convinced you to stay. But you weren't upset then, Rachel. You were testing me, seeing how much you could push before I pushed back." "That's not true." "It is true, and I'm done being tested." I went back inside for the last 2 bags. When I brought them out, she hadn't moved, just standing there with her wedding ring in her hand, looking at it like it was a puzzle she couldn't solve. "I made a mistake," she said quietly. "You made a choice. Tom, please." "No." I looked at her directly. "You don't get to do this anymore. You don't get to leave and come back whenever you feel like it. You don't get to treat this marriage like something you can pick up and put down based on your mood." "I wasn't—" "Yes, you were, and I let you. That's on me. But it's done now." She wiped at her eyes. Real tears or fake ones, I couldn't tell anymore. Didn't matter. "What about counseling?" she said. "We could try counseling." "You suggested that last time." I said yes. "We went to 3 sessions and you quit because the therapist said you needed to work on communication. You said she was biased. Maybe we could try a different—" "Rachel, stop." She stopped. "Your things are here. Your car is here. You're free to go wherever you want, but you're not coming back into this house." "This is insane," she said, and now the tears were definitely anger. "You're throwing away 7 years over one text message?" "I'm respecting your decision. That's all." "My decision? You didn't even fight for us." And there it was. The real problem. Not that she wanted to leave. Not that the marriage was over. The problem was that I hadn't performed my role in her script. I hadn't begged, hadn't groveled, hadn't made it difficult for her to maintain the upper hand. "You're right," I said. "I didn't fight for us, because there's nothing left to fight for." I went back inside and closed the door. She rang the doorbell. I didn't answer. She rang it again. Held it down for 10 seconds straight, the chime echoing through the house. I turned on the TV. Eventually, she stopped. I heard her loading the suitcases and boxes into her car. It took her 4 trips. Then the car door closed, the engine started, and she drove away. The house was quiet again. I sat on the couch and realized that for the first time in 7 years, I could do exactly what I wanted without checking with anyone, without negotiating, without compromising. I ordered pizza, the kind with extra cheese that she always said was too greasy. I ate it on the couch while watching a horror movie she would have hated. I left the dishes in the sink overnight. Small things, tiny acts of independence, but they felt enormous. My phone buzzed once around 9 p.m. Another text from Rachel. "We're going to talk about this whether you like it or not." I blocked her number. Then I opened a beer, finished the movie, and went to bed in a house that finally felt like mine. The thing about working in logistics is that you notice patterns. When something's supposed to be in one place and it shows up in another, you investigate. You track it. You figure out why the system broke down. Rachel was a pattern that had broken down 6 weeks ago. I hadn't gone looking for evidence. I wasn't that guy, the one who checks his wife's phone or follows her around like some paranoid detective. I'd just been in the wrong place at the right time, or the right place at the wrong time depending on how you looked at it. It was a Tuesday, I'd left work early because a shipment got delayed, and Carson sent me home at 11:30 instead of making me hang around until 5. I stopped at the sandwich shop on Riverside Drive, the one near the medical plaza where Rachel's office was located. Her car was in the parking lot of the Riverside Apartments across the street. I noticed because I always noticed her car. Silver Honda Accord, license plate HJK2847, the small dent in the rear bumper from when she'd backed into a pole 2 years ago. She'd parked in spot 214 under a tree that probably dropped leaves all over the hood. I sat in my truck eating my sandwich and staring at that car, trying to think of a reasonable explanation. Maybe she was visiting a friend who lived there. Maybe she was doing a work thing, some kind of home health evaluation. Maybe there was a completely innocent reason why her car was parked at an apartment complex in the middle of a workday when she'd told me that morning she had back-to-back meetings until 3. I waited 20 minutes. The car didn't move. I went home. That night at dinner, I asked her how her day was. "Exhausting," she said, barely looking up from her phone. "Meetings all day. I didn't even have time for lunch." "That's rough," I said. "You have no idea." I didn't mention the car, didn't mention Riverside Apartments. I just filed it away in the part of my brain that stored unresolved questions. The next week, I left work early again. Different reason, same result. This time I drove past Riverside Apartments deliberately, and there it was. Same car, same spot, 11:45 a.m. on a Thursday. I didn't stop, just drove past and went home. That night I asked if she wanted to grab lunch together sometime. "I can't," she said. "My schedule's too packed. You know how it is." "Yeah," I said. "I know." By the third time I saw her car there, I'd stopped pretending it was innocent. It was the following Tuesday. Same time, same spot. 3 weeks in a row, every Tuesday around lunch. That's when I started paying attention to other things. How she'd started showering as soon as she got home from work instead of relaxing first. How she'd suddenly become very protective of her phone, taking it with her even when she went to the bathroom. How she'd stopped initiating any kind of physical contact and barely tolerated it when I did. I could have confronted her, could have shown up at Riverside Apartments and knocked on doors until I found which one she was going into, could have checked her phone when she was asleep, but I didn't want to be that guy. The paranoid husband, the jealous spouse, the one who couldn't trust his wife. More than that, I wanted to see what she'd do. She'd done this before, the pattern of leaving and coming back. But this was different. This was deliberate deception, not just emotional manipulation. This was her actively building something separate from our marriage while maintaining the appearance that everything was fine. I wanted to see how far she'd take it. So I waited. 6 weeks after the first time I'd seen her car at Riverside, she sent me the text about leaving permanently, and I knew exactly why. She'd found something better, or thought she had. Someone who lived in Unit 214 at Riverside Apartments. Someone she'd been seeing every Tuesday for over a month. Someone who probably didn't know she was married or didn't care. The morning after I changed the locks, I drove past Riverside again. Different time, 7:30 a.m. before work. I wanted to see if her car would be there overnight. It wasn't. But 3 days later, on Tuesday at noon, I drove past again during my lunch break. Silver Honda Accord, spot 214, like clockwork. I pulled into the parking lot this time. Parked 3 rows away where I could see her car, but she wouldn't see my truck. The Riverside Apartments were a standard 2-story complex, maybe 60 units total, built in the 90s and showing their age. Faded brown siding, small balconies with rusted railings. Unit 214 was on the 2nd floor. I could see it from where I sat. The curtains were drawn. I waited 15 minutes. Nobody came out. Rachel's car didn't move. I left. That night, I did something I'm not proud of, but I'm not ashamed of either. I looked up the Riverside Apartments website and found their contact page. Sent an email asking about unit availability, specifically mentioning I was interested in a 2nd-floor unit and asking if they had a list of current vacancies. They responded the next day with a list of available units. 214 wasn't on it. So I tried a different approach. I called the property management office and asked if they could tell me who to contact about a package that had been delivered to Unit 214 by mistake. The woman on the phone was helpful. "That's Mr. Vance's unit, Jeffrey Vance. You can just leave it outside his door if you want." "Thanks," I said, and hung up. Jeffrey Vance. I ran the name through social media, found him in about 30 seconds. Facebook profile with loose privacy settings, the kind that lets you see someone's photos and basic info even if you're not friends. Age 34, worked as a sales manager at a car dealership, divorced 2 years ago, liked posting about golf and craft beer and the local baseball team. Unremarkable. Average. The kind of guy who probably seemed charming at first and revealed himself to be mediocre after you spent any real time with him. I scrolled through his photos. Nothing recent with Rachel, but that made sense. She was too smart to post evidence publicly. What I did find was a photo from 3 months ago. Jeffrey at some kind of charity golf event, standing next to a group of people in matching polo shirts. The caption mentioned Premier Medical Systems as one of the event sponsors. Premier Medical Systems. Where Rachel worked. The pattern completed itself. They'd met at a work event. Started talking, probably flirting. She'd given him her number, or he'd given her his. Tuesday lunches became a regular thing. She'd park at his apartment, go upstairs, spend an hour or two with someone who wasn't her husband, then go back to work like nothing happened. And eventually she'd decided this new pattern was better than the old one, so she'd sent me the text, expecting me to fall apart and beg her to stay, which would give her an excuse to leave anyway because I was too needy or too controlling. Except I hadn't fallen apart, and now she was confused. I leaned back in my desk chair and looked at Jeffrey Vance's smiling face on my computer screen. He had no idea I existed. No idea that the woman he'd been seeing was still married, still living with her husband until 3 days ago, still wearing her wedding ring at work, even while she was planning her exit. He thought he was winning. They both did. But neither of them understood that I'd been watching this play out from the beginning, letting them think they were in control while I planned my next move. I closed the laptop and went to bed. Tomorrow was Tuesday. I didn't go to Riverside on Tuesday. That would have been predictable, and predictable was what Rachel expected from me. The desperate husband showing up to confront his wife's lover, making a scene, proving that I couldn't let go. Instead, I went to work. But I did make a phone call. "Patterson Distribution, this is Carson." "Hey, it's Tom. I need next Friday off. Personal day." "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just need to take care of something." "No problem. I'll mark you down." Friday was 5 days away. That gave me time to prepare. I spent Tuesday evening doing research. Not about Rachel or Jeffrey Vance, but about Premier Medical Systems. Their website listed upcoming events, community partnerships, charity initiatives, the kind of corporate social responsibility content that every mid-sized company puts out to look good. They had a volunteer day scheduled for Saturday. Employees and their families were invited to help at the local food bank. The website had photos from last year's event, people in matching t-shirts, smiling for the camera while they sorted canned goods. Rachel was in 3 of the photos. So was Jeffrey Vance. I looked at their body language. The way they stood next to each other in one photo, closer than co-workers usually stand. The way she was laughing in another shot, her hand on his arm. The photos were dated 8 months ago. This had been going on longer than I thought. Wednesday, I drove to the car dealership where Jeffrey worked. Stevenson Auto Group, one of those big lots with rows of shiny vehicles and inflatable tube men waving at traffic. I didn't go inside, just parked across the street and watched. Jeffrey came out around noon with another guy in a suit. They got into a new Lexus, probably taking it for a test drive with a potential buyer. He looked exactly like his photos. Average height, athletic build going soft around the middle, the kind of confident walk that comes from making commission. They came back 20 minutes later. The potential buyer drove off in the Lexus. Jeffrey went back inside. I sat there for another 10 minutes watching the dealership, thinking about the kind of person who would get involved with a married woman. Either he didn't know, which made him ignorant, or he did know, which made him complicit. Either way, he was about to find out there were consequences. Thursday, I went to the bank and opened a new checking account. Just mine, no joint ownership. Transferred half the money from our shared account into it. Not stealing, just taking what was legally mine. Rachel could have the other half. I didn't need it, and I didn't want to give her any legal ammunition. That night, she called from a different number. I didn't recognize it at first, let it go to voicemail. She didn't leave a message. Called back 2 minutes later. I answered. Tom, we need to talk. No, we don't. Yes, we do. This is ridiculous. We're married. We have shared assets, shared responsibilities. Had, I corrected. We had those things. Now we don't. You can't just unilaterally decide. You decided first. I'm just following through. I want to come by and pick up some things I forgot. Everything's already gone. I brought it all out. You took it. There are things in the garage, my bike, some boxes. I'll put them on the curb this weekend. You can pick them up any time. Silence on the other end. Then, why are you being like this? Like what? So cold. So mean. I almost laughed. Mean? Rachel, you left. You texted me in the middle of my workday to tell me you were leaving permanently. You didn't call, didn't sit down and have a conversation, just sent a text and expected me to fall apart. And when I didn't, when I actually respected your decision, I'm the one being mean. That's not. It is. You wanted me to fight for you. You wanted drama. You wanted me to prove that I cared by begging you to stay. And when I didn't, you lost control of the narrative. That's what this is really about. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I've known for 6 weeks. Another silence. Longer this time. What does that mean? It means I'm not stupid, Rachel. It means I noticed patterns. It means I've been watching you think you're so clever, and all you've really been is obvious. I don't. Riverside Apartments, Unit 214, every Tuesday, 8 months, according to the photos from your company volunteer event. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. Fast, shallow. I don't know what you think you saw. I saw your car. Multiple times. Same place, same day every week. I know his name, where he works, what he does, so don't tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. You followed me? I noticed you. There's a difference. This is. You can't. I can, and I am. We're done, Rachel. File for legal separation if you want, or I will. Either way, this marriage ended when you sent that text. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking now, not from fear or sadness, from adrenaline, from the satisfaction of finally saying what I'd been holding back for weeks. She called back immediately. I sent it to voicemail. She called again. Voicemail. 5 more times over the next hour. Voicemail, voicemail, voicemail. Then the texts started coming from the new number. You're acting crazy. I was going to tell you. You have no right to spy on me. We can work this out if you'd just listen. You're making a huge mistake. I read them all, didn't respond to any of them. Around 9 p.m., a different text came through. If you tell anyone about this, I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. I smiled. There it was. The threat. The last desperate attempt to regain control. I texted back one word. Okay. Then I blocked the new number too. Friday morning, I called in my personal day and drove to the county courthouse, filed for legal separation. The clerk was efficient and bored, handing me forms and explaining the process like she'd done it 1,000 times before. You'll need to serve your spouse, she said. You can hire a process server or have the sheriff do it. I'll hire someone, I said. She gave me a list of local services. I called one from the parking lot, gave them Rachel's work address, paid the fee over the phone. "When do you need it served?" the woman asked. "Today, if possible." "We can do that. She'll have it by 5 p.m. "Perfect." I hung up and sat in my truck, looking at the courthouse building. 7 years of marriage reduced to paperwork. It should have felt sad, or final, or something significant. Instead, it just felt like closing out a work order. Task completed, move on to the next one. I drove home and spent the afternoon working in the garage, put Rachel's bike and boxes on the curb like I'd promised, organized my tools, cleaned up oil stains, made the space mine. My phone rang at 5:47 p.m., unknown number. I didn't answer. It rang again at 6:03. Same number, voicemail this time. "Tom, this is Karen, Rachel's sister. I don't know what's going on between you two, but Rachel just called me crying. She said you're divorcing her? She said you had her served at work? That's incredibly cruel, Tom. Whatever's happening, you need to handle it like an adult, not by humiliating her in front of her coworkers. Call me back." I deleted the voicemail. Rachel had gone to her sister's after the separation. I'd been right about that. Karen was protective, loyal, and completely one-sided. She'd heard Rachel's version of events, believed it without question, and now thought I was the villain. That was fine. Let her think that. Saturday, I went to the hardware store and bought a security camera for the front porch, the kind that records motion and sends alerts to your phone. Installed it myself, angled it to cover the entire porch and driveway. Sunday, Rachel's car pulled up at 2 in the afternoon. She didn't get out right away, just sat there, looking at the house through the windshield. I watched her from the living room window, standing back far enough that she couldn't see me. After 5 minutes, she opened the door and walked to the porch. Saw her bike and boxes on the curb, looked at them for a long moment. Then she walked up to the front door and knocked. I didn't answer. She knocked harder. "Tom, I know you're in there. Your truck's in the driveway." I stayed where I was. "Tom, please, we need to talk about this. You can't just serve me with separation papers and not talk to me." The new doorbell camera recorded everything. Her standing there in jeans and a sweater, her hair down, no makeup, trying to look vulnerable, trying to look like the victim. "Tom!" She pounded on the door now. "Open the door!" I pulled out my phone and opened the camera app, watched her on the screen instead of through the window. She stood there for 2 more minutes, yelling, knocking, ringing the doorbell. Then she gave up and went back to her car. But she didn't leave. She loaded the bike and boxes into her trunk, then sat in the driver's seat with her phone out. Probably texting me, calling me, trying one more angle. I waited. 20 minutes later, a different car pulled up. White sedan, newer model. Jeffrey Vance got out. So she'd called him for backup. I watched as he walked over to her car, leaned down to her window. They talked for a minute. Then he straightened up and looked at the house. He started walking toward the front door. I opened it before he could knock. He stopped 3 feet away, surprised. Up close, he looked older than his photos. Lines around his eyes, gray starting at his temples. The confident walk from the dealership was gone, replaced by uncertainty. "Can I help you?" I said. "I'm Jeffrey. I'm a friend of Rachel's." "I know who you are." That threw him. He glanced back at Rachel's car, then at me. "Look, man, I don't want any trouble." "Then leave." "Rachel asked me to come talk to you. She's worried." "She's not your problem anymore, and neither am I. I just think maybe if you guys could sit down and—" "No." I stepped out onto the porch and he took a step back. "You don't get to show up at my house and tell me what I should do with my marriage. You helped end it. Now leave." "I didn't. We didn't. Yes, you did. And you know it. So turn around, get in your car, and go." He looked at me for a long moment, trying to decide if I was dangerous, if this was worth whatever he thought he had with Rachel. "She's going through a hard time," he said finally. "So was I. For 6 weeks, while you were entertaining her every Tuesday." His face went pale. I don't know what she told you, but she didn't tell me anything. I figured it out myself. Unit 214, Riverside Apartments. Tuesday lunches that turned into Tuesday afternoons. How long before she started staying over on weekends? He didn't answer. Doesn't matter, I said. She's your problem now. Congratulations. I went back inside and closed the door, watched on the camera as he walked back to Rachel's car, leaned down to her window again. They talked for longer this time. She was animated, gesturing. He looked uncomfortable. Then he got in his car and drove away. Rachel sat there for another 10 minutes before finally leaving. I sat on the couch and realized I'd just had my first direct interaction with the man who'd been involved with my wife for 8 months, and I hadn't yelled, hadn't threatened, hadn't done anything except tell him the truth. It felt good. Better than good. It felt like control. Monday morning started normal. I went to work, logged in, checked shipment schedules. Carson stopped by around 9. How was your weekend? Productive, I said. He nodded, didn't push for details. I appreciated that about Carson. He knew something was going on, but respected boundaries. The morning passed quietly until my phone rang at 11. Unknown number, local area code. I answered. Is this Thomas Mitchell? Speaking. This is Detective Paula Grant with the Riverside Police Department. I need to ask you a few questions about an incident that was reported yesterday evening. My first thought was that Rachel had filed a police report, claimed I'd threatened her, harassed her, something to paint herself as the victim. What kind of incident? I said. A vehicle was vandalized at the Riverside Apartments complex. The owner filed a report and mentioned your name. Not Rachel. Jeffrey. I don't know anything about that, I said, which was true. The vehicle belongs to Jeffrey Vance. He stated that you came to his residence yesterday afternoon and made threatening statements. I didn't go to his residence. He came to mine. Can you tell me what happened? I explained it clearly, factually. Jeffrey had shown up at my house uninvited. We'd had a brief conversation on my front porch. I'd asked him to leave. He'd left. The whole interaction lasted maybe 3 minutes. Did you threaten him? Detective Grant asked. No. I told him to leave my property. That's not a threat. He claims you said something about consequences. I didn't say that. I told him he helped end my marriage and that my wife was his problem now. Then I went inside. There was a pause. I could hear her typing. And you didn't go to his apartment after that? No. I stayed home the rest of the day. I have security camera footage that shows the entire interaction if you need it. That would be helpful. Can you email that to me? She gave me her email address. I pulled up the footage on my phone, downloaded the relevant clip, and sent it while we were still on the call. Got it, she said after a moment. I'll review this and follow up if I have more questions. What happened to his car? I asked. Someone poured paint on it and slashed 2 tires. Happened sometime between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. last night. After he'd left my house. After Rachel had left. And he thinks I did it? He mentioned your name. We have to follow up. I understand, but I was home all evening. Didn't leave once. Can anyone verify that? The security camera can. It records motion. I can send you the full evening's footage if you want. Please do. I pulled up the extended footage. My truck in the driveway all evening, no movement except me taking out the trash around 7:30. Sent it to her email. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. I'll be in touch if I need anything else. She hung up. I sat there holding my phone, thinking about the timeline. Jeffrey had left my house around 2:15. Rachel had left 10 minutes later. His car was vandalized between 6 and 8. Rachel was upset. Rachel was angry. Rachel felt like she was losing control. And Rachel knew where Jeffrey lived. I didn't have proof. But I knew. Tuesday came, and I took my lunch break at noon, drove past Riverside Apartments. Jeffrey's car wasn't there. Neither was Rachel's. Spot 214 was empty. I parked and walked up to the second floor, knocked on the door of Unit 214. No answer. I tried again. Nothing. I was about to leave when the door of Unit 216 opened and a woman in her 60s looked out. "If you're looking for Jeff, he's not here," she said. "Do you know when he'll be back?" "He moved out. Yesterday morning. Had a moving truck and everything. Seemed in a hurry." "Did he say where he was going?" She shook her head. "Nope. Just loaded up and left. His lease isn't even up until next month." I thanked her and went back to my truck. Jeffrey had run. After 8 months of whatever he had with Rachel, after his car got vandalized, after a police detective showed up asking questions, he'd cut his losses and disappeared. Smart guy, actually. I went back to work and spent the afternoon coordinating a shipment delay, making phone calls, updating databases. Normal work for a normal day. My phone rang at 4. Detective Grant again. "Mr. Mitchell, I reviewed the footage you sent. You're clearly at home during the time frame of the vandalism." "Okay." "Mr. Vance has been uncooperative with the investigation. He's moved out of his apartment and we haven't been able to reach him for follow-up questions." "That's interesting." "We're closing the case due to lack of evidence and lack of cooperation from the reporting party. I wanted to let you know you're no longer a person of interest." "I appreciate that." "Have a good day, Mr. Mitchell." She hung up. I leaned back in my chair and smiled. Jeffrey was gone. Rachel's Tuesday routine was broken. The police had investigated me and found nothing. The whole thing was collapsing exactly the way I'd hoped it would. Wednesday, I got a text from an unknown number. "This is Karen, Rachel's sister. You need to stop harassing her." I responded, "I haven't contacted her once since she left. She's the one who keeps showing up at my house. She says you're stalking her boyfriend. I don't know who her boyfriend is, and I don't care. Tell her to stop giving people my number." I blocked Karen's number. Thursday, the doorbell camera caught Rachel's car driving past the house. 3 times in 2 hours. She didn't stop, didn't pull in, just drove past, slow, looking. I saved the footage. Friday, I got a letter in the mail from her lawyer. Standard legal separation response, agreeing to the terms, no contest on the division of assets. She wanted this over as much as I did, apparently. I called my own lawyer, confirmed everything was in order, signed the papers. Saturday morning, I was in the garage when my phone rang. Number I didn't recognize, but local area code. I answered. "Tom Mitchell?" "Yeah." "This is Brad Stevenson from Stevenson Auto Group. I understand you've been asking about one of my employees, Jeffrey Vance." "I haven't been asking about him." "Well, someone has. And they mentioned your name. Look, Jeff doesn't work here anymore. He quit earlier this week, didn't give notice. I don't know where he went and I don't care, but if you're planning to cause problems, I'm not planning anything. I don't know who contacted you, but it wasn't me." "Then who?" "Probably his girlfriend. Or ex-girlfriend. I don't know. But I have nothing to do with any of this." There was a pause. "His girlfriend?" "Yeah, Rachel Mitchell. She worked at Premier Medical Systems. Probably still does. You might want to ask her to stop using my name." "Okay. Sorry to bother you." He hung up. Rachel was spiraling, calling Jeffrey's work, trying to find him, using my name to create problems. She'd lost control of both situations and was lashing out at everyone. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Sunday. I spent the day cleaning the house. Deep cleaning. The kind Rachel used to do once a month with color-coded schedules and specific products for every surface. I did it my way. Fast, efficient, good enough. When I was done, I stood in the living room and looked around. Every trace of her was gone. The house looked different, cleaner, simpler. Mine. My phone buzzed, email notification, from Rachel, subject line. "We need to talk." I deleted it without reading. Whatever she wanted to say, I didn't need to hear it. The marriage was over, the paperwork was filed. Her Tuesday routine was gone, her boyfriend had disappeared, and she was left dealing with consequences she'd never anticipated. I'd done exactly what I said I would do, respected her decision, made it permanent, and I'd done it without yelling, without threatening, without doing anything that could be turned against me. I'd simply stopped playing her game, and she didn't know how to handle that. It took her 2 weeks to show up again. 2 weeks of silence, no calls, no texts, no drive-bys. I'd almost started to think she'd finally accepted reality and moved on. I should have known better. It was a Saturday, early evening. I was making dinner, spaghetti, the cheap jarred sauce she always complained about, when the doorbell rang. The camera showed her standing on the porch. She'd dressed carefully. Navy blue dress, the one I used to say looked nice on her. Hair styled, makeup done. She was holding a bottle of wine and what looked like a folder. I considered not answering, but curiosity won out. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "Hi," she said. Soft voice, tentative smile. The performance of someone who's realized confrontation won't work and is trying a different approach. "Rachel, can we talk? Please?" "We don't have anything to talk about." "I think we do." She held up the folder. "I've been thinking about everything, about us, about what I did, and I want to make things right." "You can't." "Tom, please, just give me 5 minutes." I looked at her standing there with her wine and her folder and her carefully constructed vulnerability. This was a new script. The apologetic wife, the woman who's seen the error of her ways, who wants reconciliation. I stepped aside and let her in, not because I believed her, because I wanted to see what she'd try next. She walked past me into the living room, set the wine and folder on the coffee table, looked around like she was cataloging what had changed. "You cleaned," she said. "I live here. Of course I cleaned." "It looks good. Different, but good." I stayed standing, arms crossed. 5 minutes. She sat on the couch, opened the folder. I talked to a counselor. Not couples therapy, just someone for me, to work through why I made the choices I made. Okay. And I realized that I was running. From us, from commitment, from the fear that I wasn't enough or that you weren't enough or that we weren't enough together. She pulled out papers from the folder. I wrote down everything I want to say, everything I want to work on, everything I'm willing to do to fix this. I didn't take the papers. "Rachel, we're legally separated. The paperwork's filed. That can be withdrawn. We can both file to dismiss it." "I'm not going to do that." "Why not?" "Tom, I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But we can fix this if we both try." "No, we can't." "Yes, we can. 7 years, Tom. 7 years of marriage doesn't just disappear because of one mistake." "One mistake?" I said. "You were seeing someone else for 8 months. Every Tuesday, like clockwork. That's not one mistake. That's a pattern of choices." She flinched. "I ended it. With Jeffrey. It's over." "I know it's over. He moved out of state." "How did you—" She stopped herself. "It doesn't matter. What matters is that I choose you. I choose our marriage. You didn't choose me when you were parking at his apartment every week. You didn't choose me when you texted that you were leaving permanently. You made your choice, Rachel. I'm just the first person who didn't let you take it back. People make mistakes. People make choices. You chose to step outside our marriage. You chose to lie about where you were. You chose to send that text thinking I'd beg you to stay. Those were all choices." She stood up, frustrated now. "So what, that's it? You're just done, after everything we built together?" "What did we build? A house we rent, furniture we bought, a marriage where you left 3 times to see if I'd chase you and came back when I did? That's not fair. It's completely fair, and you know it is. You knew what you were doing every time, testing boundaries, seeing how much you could push before I pushed back. I was scared. Of what? Of being trapped, of losing myself, of ending up like my mother, stuck in a marriage that made her miserable. So you made me miserable instead? She opened her mouth, closed it, sat back down. I didn't mean to, but you did. We sat in silence for a moment. She was crying now, real tears this time, the kind that come when someone finally understands they've lost something they can't get back. I love you, she said quietly. Maybe you do, but love isn't enough when there's no trust left. We can rebuild trust. No, we can't. Every time you're late coming home, I'll wonder where you were. Every time you take your phone into another room, I'll wonder who you're talking to. Every time you say you need space, I'll wonder if you're leaving again. That's not a marriage. That's a prison. Tom, you need to go. Please. Rachel. I looked at her directly. You made your choice. I made mine. We're done. The papers will be finalized in 60 days. You'll get half of what we shared, I'll keep the house, and we'll both move on. I don't want to move on. You did want to. 2 weeks ago when you sent that text, you wanted to move on. You just didn't expect me to let you. She wiped her eyes, smearing mascara. This isn't you? You're not this cold. I'm not cold. I'm just done being manipulated. She stared at me, and I could see the exact moment she realized this wasn't going to work. The apology, the counselor, the written list of changes, none of it mattered because I wasn't the same person she'd left. She stood up, gathered her folder and wine. You're going to regret this. Maybe, but it'll be my regret to live with. She walked to the door, stopped with her hand on the handle. I hope you find someone who makes you happy. I already did. Me. She left without another word. I locked the door behind her, watched on the camera as she got in her car and drove away. The wine bottle was still on the coffee table. Expensive, the kind she liked. I picked it up, looked at the label, then walked to the kitchen and poured it down the sink. I didn't need her apologies or her reconciliation attempts or her carefully planned performance. I needed her gone. And finally, she was. The legal separation was finalized on a Tuesday, which felt appropriate somehow. 60 days after filing, the court processed the paperwork and sent confirmation letters to both of us. I got mine on a Thursday, opened it at the kitchen table, read through the official language, signed where indicated, and filed it in the folder I'd created for divorce documents. Done. I didn't feel relieved or sad or vindicated, just neutral, like completing a work order that had been pending too long. Friday afternoon, I was at work when Carson stopped by my desk. Got a minute? He said. Sure. He pulled up a chair. I wanted to tell you something. Rachel came by here yesterday. That surprised me. Here? Why? She wanted to talk to me about you. Asked if you'd been acting strange, if I'd noticed any changes in your behavior. What did you tell her? I told her you've been doing your job same as always, that whatever's going on between you two is between you two, and I wasn't getting involved. Thanks. She seemed upset. Asked if you'd been dating anyone new, if you'd mentioned anyone at work. I shook my head. I haven't been dating anyone. Haven't even thought about it. That's what I figured, but she was convinced you must have someone else. Said it was the only explanation for how you'd been acting. I almost laughed. Rachel couldn't accept that I'd simply stopped playing her game, so she'd created a narrative where I must be doing exactly what she'd done. Projection, clear as day. Did she say anything else? I asked. She asked if I knew where you went on your day off last month. I told her I didn't keep tabs on my employees' personal time. He paused. Tom, I don't know what happened between you two, and it's none of my business. But be careful. She seemed determined. I will. Thanks for the heads up. He nodded and went back to his office. I sat there thinking about Rachel's visit. She was still trying to control the narrative, still trying to find an angle that made sense to her. The idea that I'd simply had enough and moved on without drama or revenge was incomprehensible to her. That weekend, I drove past Riverside Apartments one last time, not to check on anything, just to close that mental loop. The complex looked the same: faded brown siding, rusted balconies. Unit 214 had different curtains now, which meant someone new had moved in. Jeffrey Vance was gone. Rachel's Tuesday routine was gone. That whole chapter was closed. I drove home and spent the afternoon working in the yard, mowed the lawn, trimmed the hedges, fixed the porch light I'd been ignoring for months. Small maintenance tasks that made the house feel more mine. My phone rang while I was putting away the lawnmower. Unknown number, I answered. Mr. Mitchell, this is Jennifer from Stevenson Auto Group. The dealership where Jeffrey had worked. Yes? I'm calling because we received some documents addressed to Jeffrey Vance, but he no longer works here and we don't have a forwarding address. One of the envelopes is from Riverside County Court. I was wondering if you might know how to reach him. I don't. Sorry. The woman who dropped it off said you might know. Rachel? She didn't give a name, but she mentioned you specifically. I closed my eyes. Rachel was still trying to track down Jeffrey, still trying to resurrect something that was over. I can't help you, I said. Jeffrey and I aren't friends. I don't know where he went. Understood. Thank you anyway. She hung up. I went inside and made dinner. While it was cooking, I pulled up social media and searched for Jeffrey Vance one more time. His profile was gone, not deactivated, actually deleted. He'd erased his digital footprint completely. Smart guy. Really. Sunday evening, my doorbell rang. The camera showed a woman I didn't recognize. 30s, professional clothes, carrying a briefcase. I opened the door. Can I help you? Thomas Mitchell? Yes. I'm serving you on behalf of Rachel Mitchell. She handed me an envelope. Have a good evening. She walked back to her car and drove away. I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter from Rachel's lawyer requesting that I agree to couples counseling as a condition of finalizing the separation. They were arguing that the court should require mediation before granting final dissolution. I read it twice, then called my lawyer and left a message explaining the situation. He called back Monday morning. They can request mediation, he said. But since you've already agreed on asset division and there are no children involved, the court probably won't require it. I'll file a response declining the request. How long will this delay things? Maybe a week or two, but it won't change the outcome. Okay, do it. He filed the response that afternoon. I got a copy via email. Clear, professional language stating that I declined mediation and saw no purpose in counseling when the marriage was already legally separated. Tuesday, I was back at work when I got a text from another unknown number. You're making a huge mistake. We could fix this if you'd just try. I didn't respond, just blocked the number. Wednesday, another text from a different number. I'm not giving up on us. Blocked. Thursday, my lawyer called. The court denied her request for mandatory mediation. The separation will be final in 2 weeks. Good. She's also dropped her lawyer. I got notice this morning that she'll be representing herself going forward. What does that mean? Probably that she can't afford to keep paying legal fees for a case she's not going to win. Or she's realized it's over and doesn't want to waste money. Okay. 2 weeks, Tom. Then it's done. Thanks. I hung up and went back to work. 2 weeks felt like nothing after everything else. The following Tuesday, because of course it was a Tuesday, Rachel showed up at my house one final time. I was home, off work early because of another delayed shipment. I saw her car pull up on the camera and watched as she got out and walked to the door. She didn't knock, just stood there for a long moment, looking at the house. Then she took something out of her purse, her wedding ring, set it down on the porch mat. She got back in her car and drove away. I opened the door and picked up the ring. Gold band, small diamond, the one I'd saved for 3 months to buy 7 years ago. I took it inside, dropped it in the junk drawer in the kitchen, and went back to watching TV. 2 weeks later, the final dissolution papers arrived. I signed them, had them notarized, sent them back. A week after that, my lawyer called. It's official. You're divorced. Okay. Congratulations, I guess. Yeah. Thanks for everything. No problem. Good luck, Tom. I hung up and sat there in the quiet house, officially single for the first time in 7 years. I didn't feel celebratory. Didn't feel sad. Just felt like a chapter had closed and a new one was starting, blank and full of possibility. That evening, I went to the hardware store and bought paint. Light gray, a color Rachel would have hated. Spent the weekend painting the living room, transforming it into something that had never been ours, only mine. Monday morning, I went to work. Carson stopped by around 9. How you doing? He asked. Good, I said. Really good. And I meant it. The marriage was over. The manipulation was